Okay, welcome everybody. I am actually very happy to have Dr. Shankar here today to give this talk. This mini workshop is actually on what Dr. Shankar calls innovation flows. It's focused a lot on ideation process itself, and that is what is unique about this particular workshop. Uh, Very often most of your work is done if you've even just defined your problem well, you have come up with the right ideas and so on and so forth. It's a lot easier to take it ahead into market, and that is something which is very important for many researchers and inventors who are trying to get into the invention space. And that is what I think Dr. Shankar's focus is on when he talks about innovation flows. We'll talk a little bit more about it. Just a brief introduction to Venture Center for those who are new to Venture Center, and then we'll take it from here as well. Um, Venture Center is basically the is one of the leading inventive business incubators in the country today. Our focus is on startups which have know-how at the back end, specialized know-how, intellectual property, and ideas which are primarily very innovative. We are based out of Pune in the CSIR NCL campus, and broadly, just to give you a little bit of information, we are a not-for-profit incubator, the first in the CSIR system, supported by DST and BIRAC, and award winning with a few national awards as well to our credit. Our focus is on primarily, as I said, knowledge-based enterprises. Look at inventive startups, and startups being those which, are primarily looking at ideas which have foresight in them. And that's very the kind of thing that Shankar is going to talk about is very relevant to those kind of businesses and ideas. Focus areas have been health, biotech, biomed, life sciences, energy, environment, agro, food, and of course, all the associated engineering that goes with it, and including industrial automation, digital tech. And more recently, we are also going to be contributing to some of the defense related innovations as well. One arm of activities at the Venture Center, which we started about maybe a year and a half back, is called TechX.in. Under the National Biopharma Mission, which is operated by BIRAC, we had been nominated to be a tech transfer hub for the Western Zone. So under that activity, we have been building a lot of capacity in several things relating to tech transfer and tech commercialization and so on and so forth, and engaging with several organizations and industry in this space, and facilitating some of those relationships which could basically convert laboratory research into products and products in the marketplace eventually. So that's the goal of TechX.in. That's the umbrella arm under which we are carrying out some of these activities. It's primarily, as I told you, to support tech commercialization journeys. It's a resource center of Venture Center, and it is designated as a regional tech transfer office by BIRAC and supported by the National Biopharma missions. In services, there are a few types of different activities that the TechX is doing. One relates to tech commercialization, especially tech marketing, transfer, spin-off, venture creation, and so on. Another relates to policies, IP protection, and decision support, especially working with academic research organizations. And the last pillar is about industry, academia, partnering, and fostering relationships. We have done some very exciting tech showcases recently, featuring technologies and introducing them to various industry partners. Right now, there's a program dedicated for industry called TechNet, where we scout for technology solution providers for them. And that is another thing that is quite new. Not something which at least is being done by any of the tech transfer offices formally. So these are some of the things that we are doing. TechX.in is the website. Okay. Now, just coming to today's talk, Dr. Shankar is a good friend, and he, of course, is a mentor and advisor to the Venture Center as well. He also chairs some of our committees at Venture Center. But one of the things which I find very striking is in his background and in his thinking is the fact that he's a prolific inventor himself and promotes innovation in serious industrial settings for large organizations. And with that, he brings a wealth of experience and methodologies for primarily driving the innovation agenda. Currently, he is associated with Mahindras and Mahindras and based out of the Mahindra Research Valley in Chennai. He's a vice president there and a dean of Mahindra Technical Academy. He drives innovation activities in Mahindras. He's worked with several large companies promoting innovation, driving innovation, building programs and teams focused on innovation, including in GE, Dow, Honeywell, Cummins, and several other organizations that he's involved with informally as well. And generally in the ecosystem, he is contributing in many, many different ways. As I told you, he's a very prolific inventor himself. He's been awarded the GE's Edison Inventor Medal very early in his career itself. And even in Mahindra's, I see that he's continuing his inventions continuously. I keep following that from time to time. He's an alumnus of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and also Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. One of the most widely read persons in this field. He's very active in CII as well, and several forums relating to IP, technology management, and so on and so forth. And a very keen interest in automotive engineering, electric vehicles, urban mobility, connected mobility, and so on and so forth. These are the themes that he's driving right now. Some of you may want to connect with him on LinkedIn. Just type in MV Shankar or Shankar Venugopal, and you'll find him on LinkedIn as well. So over to you, Shankar. It's very happy to have you here again, and look forward to your session as well.
Thanks, Dr. Premnath. Very good morning to all. Very happy to connect with you all. I always look forward to a visit to Pune and a visit to Venture Center. I missed this. In these 2 years, we could not make any trips at all. But I'm glad that at least we could all connect online on a Saturday. And it's so good to talk about innovation and strengthen our innovation skills. So I thank each one of you here for being here, prioritizing innovation over so many other things you can do on a weekend. So I'm glad that you're all here. And I also want to thank Dr. Premnath and Team Venture Center for inviting me to do this program today. And I'm very excited about it. So look forward to a very nice interaction and mutual learning today. Okay. So with this, I put together a small presentation, and I'm going to just try whether I'm able to share my screen. Once you're able to see it, just let me know, and then we could get started. Sure. Dr. Premnath, you're able to see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go.
Thank you. Thank you. Friends, this is going to be fairly interactive, but you can use the chat bar to share your ideas and questions. So there will be somebody who will keep monitoring that and bring up your questions at the right times. We have planned for a few breaks in between, so you will get a chance to look at those questions and discuss around it. Sure. So welcome to the Innovation, a mini workshop, and we are going to be together for the next 2.5 hours and see how best we can strengthen our innovation skills. That's what is planned for today. And I am Shankar Venugopal. I work for Mahindra, and I'm based at the Mahindra Research Valley in Chennai. So the right place for us to get started is for us to know who you are and why you are here. And because that's a way we can actually customize this entire discussion around your needs today. So I want you to just look at the chat bar. You will see a Google form popping up there. That's where that's what you could use to tell us who you are and what is your interest, what is your motivation for being here today. Please take a couple of minutes to do that, and then we'll get started.
So, Shankar,
Yes,
I'm just putting this on the chat box, but
yes,
when the results come up, I will need you to
yeah,
allow me to share it. Okay?
we'll do that. Sure, sure.
Yeah, just a moment, please. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. I will step out for a minute meanwhile, Premnath.
Yes, yes, sure.
Okay.
Can you unshare, please?
Yeah, I will stop sharing and then I'll
Yeah,
be back.
yeah. Can you please look up the form that I have posted on the chat box? You should be able to click on it and it should take you to a page where it's a very quick poll. Let me know if there's a problem on the chat box. Okay, I've started getting responses. Yeah, there's a question on the chat box which you can um, fill up. I think somebody has just joined, so let me try and see if I can put it back on. Yeah, so Shankar, can you see
Yes,
the
I can
results
see
that are
the pie
coming
chart.
in?
Yes,
Yeah, so
that's
this
nice.
is broadly what is showing up. You seem to have a very equal split between different types
Yeah,
of people out here.
very
and
colorful. Yes.
also many different reasons, but the biggest chunk uh, seem to be those who are academics or researchers who want to develop new technologies, inventors, and so on and so forth. Okay, and industry professionals who are tech developers as well. Those I think are probably the largest chunk of people. And how to promote innovation in the organizations that they work for, besides of course learning how to come up with inventive ideas leveraging their own research. Okay, so that gives you a quick
Excellent.
flavor. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay,
Sure.
so I'll stop share. You can go to the
Yes.
next
Sure.
yeah. Okay, continue please.
Great. So, friends, it's thanks for doing this survey, and now we have a fair idea. Um, so, with this knowledge of who you are and what is your interest in attending this program, let's go ahead and here is the plan for the innovation flow, the mini workshop today. We will start with a very quick introduction to innovation and creativity, then go through the discovery phase, which would help us to ask the right questions and understand the innovative problem that we are trying to solve. And we will wrap up this part with creating an opportunity canvas, which will basically describe what is the opportunity and what is the problem that we are trying to solve. And that's when we'll have a small break, maybe a 5 minutes break. And then we will get back to work on the solution part. The first is all about understanding the problem that we are trying to solve. Second part is actually solving it. And this is where we start with visualizing what could be the best solution, and then create many ideas, and then prioritize the best ideas. And finally, we are also going to talk about how we can come up with 10x ideas. Okay, there is a lot of interest in shifting from incremental to exponential innovation. So we will keep that for the last part of the event today, where we'll talk about how we can come up with 10x and possibly 100x ideas. And that's going to be a very interesting part. So stay with us. So friends, I hope you can see yourself here in this picture. You're there standing on the beach, and there is this fairly big wave coming towards you at a reasonably good speed. And you wonder what you should be doing. And that's typically the space in which many of us are operating, because there are so many disruptions happening, both in terms of technology and new business models coming in. So we are taken by surprise, and we have very little time to respond to these big changes. And what we are going to learn today could actually put you in a situation like this, where instead of standing there on the beach in a helpless way, wondering what to do, you'll be able to actually acquire the skills that will help you to surf, ride over these waves, and make it a very pleasant and enjoyable experience. That is the true intent of the workshop today, and I hope we'll all be able to achieve this. So let's start with understanding what is creativity and innovation all about. Um, because there is a lot of fuzziness around what exactly is creativity, let alone knowing whether we are creative or not. So let's start at this right place to understand what are the real components, the elements of creativity. One of the best experts in this field is Professor Teresa Amedei from Harvard Business School. And she has this beautiful model of explaining what is creativity and innovation all about, where she brings three key elements: curiosity, your technical expertise or domain knowledge, and motivation. Brings these three together, and the true creativity and innovation really happens when these three things have a significant overlap. I'm sure you can relate to this model, because if you have curiosity and if you have rich domain knowledge, but you lack the motivation, we are not going to move forward. Same way, if we have the motivation and the technical knowledge, but if we lack the curiosity, then again we are going to be stuck. We won't be able to get new perspectives and new ideas. On the other hand, if you have curiosity and motivation, but if you don't have the technical expertise, even if you come up with ideas, you'll struggle to implement those ideas. So you need to have a good balance of all these three if you want to really translate your creative potential into tangible ideas which can be implemented. So that's what creativity is all about. And our own Indian model for creativity brings three powers together: the Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and the Kriya Shakti. Icha is the desire, the motivation, the desire to really solve a problem. In the case of a lot of social innovators who take up a social problem to solve, there is a very strong motivation because they are driven by the cause, they want to do it. So there is a strong motivation. And why this motivation is important? Because when it's try to solve some difficult problems, you may fail many times. So it's a motivation that helps you to come back and try once again. So the Icha Shakti is very critical, and it's a key driving force for all successful innovation. Second is the Jnana Shakti, which is the knowledge, domain knowledge, which is going to help you to really implement the idea, the technical feasibility part of it. And the Kriya Shakti, you can look at it in two ways. It's a creative power, and also it's a power to execute things. And without it, the idea just remains on a paper or on a PPT chart. So you need to bring all these three together to make it happen. And I'm sure It's no rocket science. If we are good at two and we lack in one, it's always easy for us to train ourselves, bring in the necessary discipline to focus on what we are lacking, and make sure that there is a significant overlap between all the three. But in a simple way, this is the three essential elements that we need to start with. And a lot of the tools and techniques that we'll discuss today is built based on this framework. Now, let's understand how we get started. Assuming that we all have the power of creativity, the potential, where do we get started, and what is it that we can learn from successful innovators to see how we can model ourselves along those lines and become equally successful in innovation? So, there has been a very systematic study done on innovators across many different domains. And this study was published in the Harvard Business Review as the Innovators DNA, where we talk about most successful innovators have certain things in common. And there are four behavioral skills which set them apart. They are very good in asking questions. They don't hesitate. They're very bold in asking questions. They observe things very carefully and they continuously keep experimenting. And they are also very good networkers. They don't limit to people within their domain, they widely connect with people across multiple domains. These are the common behavioral skills seen across innovators from multiple domains. Added to this behavioral skill is a cognitive skill, which is their ability to make new associations. The famous words of Steve Jobs, it's connecting the dots. So these people not only have good questioning, observing, experimenting, and networking skills, but they have very strong associating skills, which helps them to connect things and create some new combinations. So it is this combination of skills, these five skills, which helps these innovators to come up with very disruptive ideas. And today, we'll be talking about not only the incremental innovation, we'll also be talking about how we can actually enable some disruptive innovation, both in terms of technology and business models. So it's very important for us to look at these skills, how we can practice these skills in our day-to-day life, so that we'll be able to come up with disruptive ideas going forward. So that's two in terms of introduction. I will keep it brief. Let us get into the actual tools and techniques so that we'll get a feel for what this is all about. So I mentioned that it's very important to ask questions. Um, as when we are young, we used to ask a lot of questions, but as we grew older, we have been asking fewer and fewer questions for multiple reasons. But there are these six questions which could help all of us, whatever be the field we are working on, and whatever be the stage of the project. It's always important for us to ask when we get started on a new opportunity, who is affected? This may look like a very simple, very trivial question, but the answer to this takes some time to get the right answer to this question. Who exactly is affected by the problem that I'm trying to solve? Following this important question is, what exactly is the problem? Once you state this, the next obvious thing to ask is, when is it a problem? And where is it a problem? If you're able to get answers for these four questions, then you will have the confidence to move to the fifth one, which is a very important question, especially from an innovation perspective. Why does the problem exist? What causes this problem? What is the root cause? How deep can we go and understand what is causing this particular problem? The last one, how is it a problem? This is all about what happens if I don't solve this problem? What bigger problem will it lead to if I don't solve this? So, friends, these six questions look very simple and straightforward, but finding the right answers to these six questions is super important for you to get started on solving the right problem. This is very important. If you do this well, half the problem is actually solved. And this is not a one-time activity. You may have to do it in an iterative manner. At different stages of the project, you'll be doing this. And also, whenever somebody new joins your team, you'll take them through this so that they understand the problem from the various dimensions and what made you take up this problem. So this is a very, very useful document for you to have to kind of exercise creativity, not just individually, but also with your team members. This is where I would encourage you to all get started. Those of you who have heard any talks on innovation, read books on creativity, you'll be very familiar with the picture that I show here. There has been this long-held belief that we have two types of thinking that we all exercise. One is the logical thinking, other is the creative thinking. And sometimes we are more logical and sometimes we are more creative. But the context of innovation, what is important is to bring both these aspects together. We need to be equally good at creative thinking and also logical thinking. It is a right balance of these two that helps us to come up with new ideas and also make sure that these ideas actually work. So this is a tricky part of the innovation. How do you balance these two? When should you be more creative and less logical? And when you should be more logical and less creative? If you are able to crack this, I'm sure you'll be able to crack this entire game of innovation. There are times when the logical brain kind of restricts your creativity and makes you take a very safe approach. Try something which is not so risky, try something which is not so adventurous. So we will start with, is there a way to silence the logical brain for some time so that you can exercise your creativity? Okay. So this is done by a very simple tool called What If. Okay. What If is it's also a fun tool. It's not one of those serious creativity tool. It's actually a fun tool. I'm sure you would really enjoy. But that is the first discovery mode question that I want to introduce to you. What if actually liberates you? It lets you free up a lot of space in your mind by basically letting go of your current beliefs, your current models, and letting the innovation flow into your mind. And let's look at how it works and how you can use it and benefit from it. Here are a few examples of what kind of ideas and businesses you will end up with if you exercise what if. Okay. Um, what if your customers could actually customize every single detail of your product? Today, we are giving a complete product to the customer. So the customer doesn't have much flexibility on making changes to it. But what would it be like if you can design your product in such a way that the customers can actually customize every single detail of it? Is it possible? Okay. There are a lot of examples. What I've shown here is an example from Nike, where they allow the customers to change, to design every single aspect of this shoe. And this is possible. Why shoes? It can be done with many other products too. But I want you to consider this possibility. What if you can design your product such a way that it is customizable? Second is, what if you could actually reframe your service into bite-sized components? What I mean by this is, I'm sure many of you, whenever you try to learn a new language, you'd have used the Duolingo. Learning a new language is a very long, laborious process. It's one long process. But what Duolingo could do is to split it into small bites, just a short 5-minute lessons. Whenever you are free, coffee break, tea break, you can take one lesson and progress. So there's a continuous progress. And also, even if you are busy, you will still be able to do it. So this is possible with many other products. So you should always challenge yourself to see, what if you can reframe your service into bite-sized components? The third what if is, what if your customers can share your products and services? Very similar to the ride sharing, the car sharing, the bike sharing kind of services. that's become popular these days, and we all see the value of it. And this idea of sharing can be extended to many other products, and this is one of the what if that you can consider. I have three more examples before we move to the next one. This is what if your industry was fully decentralized. Here I have used the example of Airbnb. Hotel was such a centralized business, and then Airbnb came and launched millions of rooms across the world, and it's completely decentralized, and it's very innovative, very affordable, and very inclusive. So this has really fundamentally changed the whole models of the hotel business. Second is, what if your product became available for free? Okay, this is a tough one, because you may wonder, why should I offer my product free? Then how do you make money? But also think about it. If you are not doing it, and if your competitor is offering the product free, then also you are going to be in a tough situation. So how can you look at newer business models such a way that even if you give the product for free, you would still have revenue coming from something else? How do you build this? Sure, it's not a totally new concept. For example, all of us use the Google search, which is absolutely free. And there are many other such free products and services where they have business models where the revenue actually comes from advertisements and many other ways in which they can make their money. So this is one what if for you to consider. What if your product became available for free? The last one in the series is, what if you launched your own competitor? Instead of waiting for somebody to disrupt you, can you yourself pursue your disruptive idea so that you can be your own competitor? You can disrupt yourself. Okay. So these what ifs are not just fun questions. If you take them seriously and follow up, you'll be able to really come up with new innovations, very powerful innovations, which can totally disrupt the system. So this is how a lot of the disruptive innovations around us have actually happened. And I would encourage you to look at this website, the Board of Innovation, where they have 50 such what if questions, which would help you to trigger your creativity. Just now, I want to introduce you to the second discovery question. I call it WIN. WIN stands for what if it's not there. And the approach that I use here is reverse thinking. And this helps us as innovators to overcome resource constraints. Because as innovators, this is one problem we often face, that we want to do things, but we lack the resources. So this will actually help you to go ahead and do, even in the absence of resources. So let me show you how it works. So win, what if it's not there? So here is an example. So you want to come up with a very innovative model of a school, and but you lack a lot of the resources that you need to run the school. So we are now asking how we can make it happen. So a typical school would have a teacher, a building, they'll conduct exams, and they'll have students. Okay, these are very fundamental things. You just cannot imagine a school without these. Now, a win school will basically reverse each of this assumption and say, what if there is no teacher? What if there is no building? And so on. So you can see here, if you don't have a teacher, you still have a few other options. You can have some of the senior students teaching the junior students. You can have students discussing among themselves and learning from each other. You can have students looking at videos of some lectures or some experiments and learning from that. You can even have a robot coming and interacting with the students and helping them to learn. So these are some of the alternative ideas of running a school, even when you don't have a teacher. Same way, if you don't have a building, you can run your school under the shade of a tree. There is this boat school that goes around in Kerala. So this goes to different villages actually and picks up the students and run the classes on the boat itself. So there are options. The best part is, even if you have a teacher, even if you have a building, still you'll be able to implement these ideas. But what this does is actually temporarily free you up from the assumptions that you make so that even in the absence of those resources, you'll still be able to come up with ideas to make it work. And these ideas are so good that you can put it back in the original system, a school which has teachers, building, exams, and students. So that way, you are able to break from your assumptions, come up with some ideas, take those ideas and put it back in the original system and make it a lot more innovative than what you started with. So we looked at two discovery questions. Now I want to show you the final one, which is a very, very powerful discovery question called 5 whys. Simple, asking why 5 times. So how do we do that? And what will happen when you do this? Okay. Some of you may remember this poem that you would have learned when you were back at school. This talks about actually a story where a kingdom was lost because a nail was missing. Um, Sounds very strange. How can a kingdom be lost just because a nail was missing? But now, if you actually go through the 5 whys, why was the kingdom lost? Because the battle was lost. Why was the battle lost? Because many of the soldiers could not fight well. Why could not the soldier fight well? Because many of them they lost their horses. And why did they lose their horses? Because the horses lost their shoe because the nails were missing. So it's always a very, very powerful approach to go deeper and deeper and understand what is the root cause of a problem. Because if you are solving at the highest level and if your competitor is solving at one level deeper, then your competitor solution will be stronger than your solution. So it's always good for you to go as deep as possible. Take the most fundamental problem and start solving it so that your solution will be the strongest and it will also have a very long life. So this is the power of 5 whys, and it's very easy. All you have to do is ask why 5 times. But what is important is the direction. You should not diverge. You should keep very focused, and each why should be basically one step deeper than the previous why. It's very important to have that focused 5 whys for you to get meaningful insights out of this exercise. So with this, we have looked at three powerful discovery mode questions, which can help you to bring a lot of clarity to the problem that you take up. Now, we will just look at how you can put all these things together in what we call as the opportunity canvas. Opportunity canvas is something that you can create a chart and put it up at your workplace so that you can constantly keep looking at it when you're working on the problem. So we start with answering who is affected, what is the problem, when is it a problem, where is it a problem, how is it a problem, and why did the problem arise? And we show the entire logical process of going through the 5 why and how did we arrive at this fundamental problem that we have decided to work on. On the right side, also there is a visual way to represent this in terms of the ecosystem of this problem also. The inner hexagon shows the subsystem. So if your product is a box, whatever is inside the box is all subsystem. And whatever your product interacts with is all the super system. And typically this tool, we do it in a very visual way. We don't write things, we actually draw or put some pictures. So this shows what all things your product is going to interact with and how you can use those interactions to actually make your product perform even better and create more value for your customer. So friends, this is the first part where we are looking at opportunity, trying to formulate the problem, making sure that we have looked at both the breadth and the depth of the problem that we are trying to solve. And all these three tools, the various questions that we went through, we should be able to capture this in this one chart, which we call as the opportunity canvas. And this is the right time for us to take a break where we are going to again go to the chat bar, look at these two questions. What exactly is your barrier to innovation? And second, The first step for us on the innovation journey is to get to know our customers. So how do you get to know your customer? So I'm going to stop sharing so that Dr. Premnath will be able to show the results of this.
Yeah, I have already put up the link on the chat box. You can click on it. It'll take you to a form, which you can quickly just choose the options. It's just a 1 minute thing. And then we should be able to see the results live. Responses are coming up. Shankar, can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. Yes.
Yeah. Please do fill up, use the chat box link. Pragnya,
Yes, sir.
would you be able to put those links on the YouTube
Yes, yes.
line? So, okay,
Yes, I
thank
will.
you.
I will.
Execution of the idea seems to be the biggest challenge.
Mhm. Largest chunk is observing
Yes.
customers
Yeah.
or
Yes.
sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, I think the execution seems to be the biggest chunk, right? Okay.
Absolutely. True. True.
Yeah.
True.
Is it quite
Yeah.
do
Understandable.
you
Yes.
do you hear,
Yes.
is it the same thing in other places too, or from your experience?
Quite true. Because
Yeah.
mm, okay.
Yeah, please. And
Okay.
also, what do you do to know your potential customer, right? That
Yes.
one too, I think observe customers is seems to be the preferred answer,
Very nice.
or at least that's what
Yes.
people are making us believe.
Shyam. It's
Okay.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we stop this here? We'll
Yeah. We could
continue.
stop and I would get back. Sure.
Okay. Let's continue.
Very interesting. So, friends, back to our discussion. So, thanks for sharing your inputs on what you see as a barrier to innovation and also sharing your approach to getting to know your customer. Um, the kind of inputs that I saw that I'm going to use that to actually focus on some of the areas which could actually help you to further improve what you are doing out there. That's the intention of asking you these questions. Um, we could possibly take a 5 minutes break at this stage, or if you feel it's too early, we can shift it a little later. What do you think, Dr. Premnath?
Shankar, I think we can continue a little longer.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
And
Just
then
let me
let's
know
break in about
when we
10,
do.
15 minutes or a natural break when you see in the flow of
Perfect.
your thoughts. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. Let's
Sounds
go.
good. So, friends, we kind of made some progress by asking questions and reached a level where we are able to describe the opportunity that we are pursuing on a single chart called the opportunity canvas. Now we are going to shift gears and move into the solution mode, where we are going to move from understanding the problem to actually solve the problem. And the best place to start doing this is what we call as visualizing the ideal solution. Because your bar should be very high. You need to, first of all, figure out what is the best possible solution that you can actually come up with. And then look at available resources and technologies and try to come up with a solution which is as close to the best solution as possible. So this is a very, very powerful tool called ideality. Some people also call it as ideal final result, or IFR, which is a very powerful TRIZ-based tool. TRIZ is a very powerful systematic innovation method, and this is one of the best tools that TRIZ offers. So how does this work? Okay, so you take any product that you want to improve, and you ask three things about the product. What are the useful properties of this product? What are the harmful properties? Harmful means whatever is not useful is harmful because it's not adding value. And what is the cost? The sense, what is contributing to the cost of this product? So these are the three things that we have to brainstorm with the team and capture. So if you take, for example, the case of a product like a pen, if you look at a pen, what is a useful thing? The ability to write is definitely the primary useful effect of this product. The harmful effect is it may run out of ink, so I have to worry about it. I may also misplace the pen. That is also something I need to worry about it. And if I lose the cap, the ink can stain my shirt. These are so many other disadvantages or limitations associated with the pen. The cost, if you look at, there's a cost, there's a material cost, there's a manufacturing cost, there's a marketing cost, so many things. Okay. Asking these three questions, the useful, harmful, and the cost, actually is very important for you because suppose I am looking at instead of making a pen which is 100 rupees, I want to make the same pen at 10 rupees, okay, 1/10. So I need to understand which cost should I focus on? Should I focus on material, manufacturing, marketing? Which cost exactly is really making it expensive? How can I do that? Same way, the useful effects when you look at, there is a primary useful effect which is writing, in the case of a pen. In the case of a phone, it used to be communicating. That's it. There was no concept of a camera on a phone at some time. Then somebody thought, why limit to only the primary useful effect, which is communicating? Can I also add a camera there and make it more useful to the customer? So we talk about secondary useful effects other than the primary useful effects. So feel free to add few more attributes, few more parameters to your product, which can give additional useful effects over and above what the primary one is. So feel free to do that. Many times that would be easier and the customers also would appreciate it a lot. The harmful one is where you need to work how to reduce the harmful effects or if possible eliminate the harmful effects. It's very important for you to do that because whatever useful effects you offer, the harmful effects can irritate your customer and make them move away from your product. So while you are focusing on improving the useful effects, it's equally important for you to reduce or eliminate the harmful effects also. So there are only three ways in which you can come up with a better product. One is to add more useful effects, reduce harmful effects, or reduce the cost. There are only three directions of innovation that you can pursue. And when you do this, it's always good to first visualize the ideal solution which comes without any constraints. If I have an ink that never gets over, that writes forever, that's a constraint-free thinking. So it's okay. It's absolutely okay as an innovator for you to think of such a possibility and say, how can I create a pen that will write forever? Uh, this is uh, this is very useful in the sense today you may not have a solution, today you may not have a technology, but if that's your target, as new technologies come in, you'll be able to leverage them and ultimately you will be able to create that ideal product, which is a pen that writes forever. So it's very important for us to visualize the best possible solution without actually getting bogged down by the constraints. This is true of any product. If it's a car, I think of a car which will run forever. Okay, is it possible? But I will show you examples of how actually people could not only think this way, but could actually create those products. That's when you will believe that it is actually possible. So as we go along, I'll show you some of those examples. But this is a very simple exercise. All you need to do is three things. What are the useful effects of my product, harmful effects of my product, and what are the contributors to the cost of my product? So that is about visualizing. Now I'm going to tell you how you can come up with many, many ideas. Because for those of you who felt that lack of ideas is your barrier. That's where you are really facing problems. This, the next few minutes, will remove that barrier for you. You'll all be able to come up with tons of ideas based on what we are going to discuss now. Technically, it's called a divergent thinking, where you let go your imagination and think as widely as possible and come up with many, many ideas. And this divergent thinking is always followed by what we call as convergent thinking. So that's a second part, which is in light gray. We'll come to that as part of this workshop. We will cover those convergent thinking tools also. So how do we think divergently? So here I have a tool to offer to you, which is create. CREATE. C stands for combine, R for rearrange, E for enhance, T for turnaround, E for eliminate, and there is A at the center, which is adapt. Okay. So we wonder, what is this? It looks very colorful and very strange words. How is it going to actually help me come up with new ideas? So whatever the problem that you are working on, you have to basically ask, what can I combine? What can I rearrange? What can I enhance? What can I adapt from elsewhere? What can I turn around? What can I eliminate? And for what? To achieve what? To achieve what we saw here. To improve the useful effects, to reduce the harmful effects, to reduce the cost. These are the three directions in which we are going to think. But the triggers for that is going to be 6 very powerful triggers: combine, rearrange, enhance, adapt, turn around, and eliminate. I would suggest you write down the problem, let's say the product that you are looking at, useful, harmful, cost. You write it down and then set aside 1 hour, 10 minutes for combine, 10 minutes for rearrange, and so on. There are only 6 directions in which you are going to think. So 10 minutes each, that adds up to 1 hour. And there are 3 problems that you're going to address. One is improving the useful effects of your product. Second is reducing the harmful effects of your product. And the third is reducing the cost of your product. So I'll show you some examples to tell you how exactly this works. What is common to these 3 innovative products? Combine is what is common. If you look at somebody combined wheels with a heavy suitcase to make it convenient to the customer to handle it. Somebody combined a bell and a clock so that it can ring and wake you up at the right time. Somebody combined actually a printer and a telephone to create a fax machine where you can send across information. These are very simple triggers. Combine is very simple, very powerful. It allows you to bring ideas from multiple domains and bring them together. So the creativity is all in the way you combine. The two things existed. For example, wheels were there, suitcases were there. But moment you bring these two together, you are creating a totally new product. You're creating a totally new value to the customer. So that's the power of combining. And it's the easiest tool, and the output, it will be the most powerful ideas come out of combine. So this is a good place for all of us to start with. In fact, if you look at the printing press, there was this wine press where they used to press the grapes and get the wine out. So they combined this wine press actually with this wooden stencils alphabets to create a printing press. So it's a powerful, very powerful invention. And the motivation for that was a coin punch, where basically you'll be able to punch out shapes. And this is, in a way, it's a lot of the innovations that you see around are actually combinations of old ideas. What you think as a new idea is really a combination of old ideas. The creativity is in the way you combine them. Okay. And this is a good place to start with, and I'm sure you'll always find some good ideas when you try combining. One of the ideas that I heard when I was visiting the Venture Center, this was a few years back, there was a team which pitched this idea. And this is a hand cranked defibrillator. So this company is called Geetronics. So there is the defibrillator in the hospitals, which is used when a person has a cardiac arrest. And this needs a very high voltage because you have to basically give a shock to revive the beating of the heart. Many times, the device, when you actually need it, it may not be sufficiently charged, it may not be able to deliver the high voltage that you need. So this is always a challenge, how to do this, how to manage this. And especially if you're in a, say, ambulance emergency team going there, where will you go for charging it and how will you get the high voltage? Then in parts of Africa, there are these hand cranked radios, which are very popular. So just by hand cranking it a few times, you'll be able to charge the radio and use it. So this team actually thought of combining these two so that you can have a hand cranked defibrillator. Such a powerful idea. Just imagine you'll be able to save lives just by hand cranking it and building the necessary voltage. You'll be able to save the life of a person. So this is again an Indian inventor, Ram Durjati, who actually came up with the original idea way back in early 2000. And there is a startup associated with the Venture Center, which has built a product for this, and they have taken it to global markets. Very powerful innovation. And this is just combined. What you have done, a hand cranked radio and a regular defibrillator, you have combined to create a hand cranked defibrillator. So combine, you got a sense for how it works. There is another thing, rearrange, where you don't bring anything new, but just rearrange existing things. So in the interest of time, I'm going to skip that and go to enhance and adapt, where I will spend a little more time. When you're trying to enhance your product, you could ask a variety of things. You can ask what I want to amplify or boost, what I can expand, what I should increase. For example, if I'm talking about a smartphone, what I want to increase, maybe the battery life I want to increase. Okay. What I want to enlarge, maybe the display screen I want to enlarge. What I want to strengthen, maybe the glass cover I want to strengthen it. These are very easy triggers to see what aspects, what features of your product you want to enhance so that it becomes a better product. Adapt is very interesting, and adapt actually helps you to come up with out of the box ideas because you'll be looking for motivation from somewhere else. Okay, so there are many popular innovations which are actually nature inspired innovations. Somebody saw something in nature and got inspired and adapted it and made products which could create a lot of value for the customers. The Velcro, which is such a powerful thing that it's really all of us have used it and seen the value of Velcro. This Velcro actually was the way it was developed, and it goes back to the early days when George de Mestral, he had gone for a walk with his dog, and you see these burrs which grow along with the grass. A lot of them had stuck to the fur of the dog, so he was quite curious to see how it works, how it gets stuck so firmly, put it under a microscope to see that actually it has a hook kind of a structure. That's what helps you to lock it to the fur of the dog and other surfaces. So then he went on to see, can I make it in the lab? And that's what led to the development of Velcro. He got a patent way back in 1955. And it's one of the best known and most successful commercial product. And this kind of innovation, we call it as biomimicry, because you see it in nature, you derive inspiration from that, and you try to mimic that. And there are lots of very interesting innovations which are nature inspired innovations. So this adapt is adapting from nature. Of course, you can adapt from many other places too, But this is one powerful way because nature seems to have perfected certain things so well that it's very easy to adapt from nature. There was this engineer, E.G. Nakatsu, who was working on this bullet train project in Japan. And one of the problems that he faced was whenever this bullet train, which travels at this high speed, comes out of a tunnel, it makes this boom noise. And a lot of times the tracks actually run through busy residential areas. So that kind of a noise level is not acceptable. So unless he figures out a way to reduce the noise created by this bullet train, he won't be able to continue the project. So he was in a very difficult situation. He was wondering, he spoke to all the experts, he could not find ways in which the noise can be reduced. But Nakatsu is also a bird watcher. So on the weekends, he spends some time watching birds, and that's when he actually gets to see kingfisher. This kingfisher, what he saw was it saw a fish and it wanted to catch it. So it just came and dived into the water, caught the fish by its beak, and flew back. But the whole thing it did in such a way that the fish had no clue that the kingfisher is coming to catch it. So it did it in such a way that it put its beak into the water with very minimal disturbance, no ripples, nothing was caused, just came straight in, took the fish, and went back. And he wondered how it's able to do that. And then he observed the beak of the bird and realized that it's the shape of the beak that allows this bird to not cause any ripples and smoothly transition from air to water, pick up its prey, and fly back. And you could see why the bullet train has this very funny beak shaped front, and that actually worked. It significantly reduced the noise caused by the bullet train, that they could continue with the project through that residential area without any concern. So this is the power of borrowing ideas from nature, and you should always look for such examples. And of course, one need not always adapt only from nature. One can adapt from other places too. For example, if you are designing a smartphone, you need not limit to only phone and other communication devices. You can also ask, what can I adapt from a washing machine? What can I adapt from a refrigerator? And bring those ideas into a smartphone. Okay, for an innovator, if you're really looking at out of the box ideas, the farther away you go to adapt ideas from, the more out of the box ideas you will get. For example, just think about this. What can you adapt from a washing machine and introduce in a smartphone? And what can you adapt from a refrigerator and introduce in a smartphone? So adapt, now you understand, it's not direct copy paste of idea. It's just deriving inspiration of an idea, what that particular system is really good at, and modifying that and introducing it in a meaningful way into our own product. And that's where your creativity comes in terms of making the right modifications and adapting it. The last two triggers, turn around and eliminate, are in fact very, very powerful triggers. So let's spend a little more time here. Here there's a very interesting example that I came across for doing the reverse. Turnaround is just doing the opposite of what you're expected to do. Okay, let us go through this example. This goes back to early 1960s when there was an epidemic outbreak of cholera in Bangladesh. And as you know, the key to keeping cholera patients alive is to keep them hydrated. So how do you do that? And this is where a very old Ayurvedic recipe, very, very old, where to treat patients with severe diarrhea caused by cholera. Okay. This recipe brings coconut water, carrot juice, rice water, carboflour, and dehydrated bananas. So this is a very unique recipe, and this is not very common to use a concoction made out of these ingredients to treat. At the time, the Western medical opinion held that putting carbohydrates in the stomach of a patient suffering from diarrhea would cause cholera bacteria to multiply and the disease would actually worsen. But Dr. Khan, who looked at this Ayurvedic medicine, had a very different view on this. He said this knowledge has been around for a long time and this is counterintuitive, but actually this seems to work. By giving carbohydrate and sugar in the solution with salt, the uptake was quicker and the patients rehydrated really fast. This, he tried it and he was very much convinced that this is the right thing to do. Then this got published in the British medical journal, Lancet, and it finally made its way to a doctor at the University of Florida. This doctor saw a common problem that it's not only these patients with the diarrhea who need a quick rehydration. Even healthy football players and many sports people would also need to rehydrate themselves very quickly. And that gave birth to Gatorade. We see Gatorade so commonly these days, but the origin of Gatorade is actually a reverse thinking or a counterintuitive thinking, because this was the idea which was totally in the direction opposite to conventional thinking at the time. And this innovator had the guts to pursue it and make it work. That's the first innovator who used it for treating the patients. Second innovator looked at this for an entirely different application, which is for healthy people, especially the sports people who need to very quickly rehydrate themselves. So you can see innovations of two types here around the Gatorade. And this is what I mean when I say turn it around, which is just doing the opposite of the conventional thinking. The last one is eliminate. What do you eliminate? In an electric car, you have eliminated the engine and so many other components that come along with the engine. To the extent you have eliminated so many things that if you actually open the front bonnet of the electric car and look what's beneath it, there is nothing out there. This is a kind of a big paradigm shift one could create by using eliminate as a trigger. So it's not about eliminating some fringe components, but it's about eliminating the heart of the product. What makes a product work? How can you eliminate it and still make it work? What kind of modifications? It's by thinking that way, you'll be able to come up with a totally different version of your product with a much more superior performance. Of course, why stop with eliminating the engine? You can also eliminate the driver so that the car can drive by itself. That's an autonomous car. So these are examples where you look at what is the heart of my product and how can I eliminate that thing and come up with a totally innovative version of my product. So the electric car, the autonomous car are clear examples of elimination. So now, friends, we looked at 6 directions in which you can think to improve your product. Combine, rearrange, enhance, adapt, turn around, and eliminate. And typically, what we are going to do now is to use this create to solve the problems that we had taken up. But at this stage, I want to do a quick break. Look at your chat bar, and there are 3 questions that we want you to answer. One is, how do you create ideas? We want to hear from you, how you do it currently. And if you have to create a 10x improvement idea, how do you do that? And the third one is a topic which we have not talked about yet, but we want to hear your response before we bring it up for discussion. What do you do when you hit a patent barrier? You're working on an idea, then you come across a patent which describes a very similar idea. So that's a patent barrier. So what would you do when that happens to you? Okay. Please take 5 minutes to answer these 3 questions, and then we'll continue our discussion.
Yeah. Shankar, I put the link on the chat
Okay.
box.
Okay.
So everybody can click on it. It'll take you to a form which you can just quickly fill up. The responses I'll show up. Shankar, soon after this, there are a couple of questions which I thought if you can take up, and then we can break for just about 2-3 minutes, just give a bio
Sure,
brief,
Premnath. We
right?
could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Sure.
And then we'll continue further after that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I hope people are able to access this. Okay. Yeah. I can see results coming up. Shankar, can you see the responses
Yes.
coming up? Yeah.
Yes. Trial and error. Yes. Mm,
Let's
building
see.
on old ideas. Yes.
Those on YouTube will also have access to the link. It's on your chat box in YouTube. Yeah. Please go ahead, fill up the form. It's just about 1 minute. I think it shouldn't take you much more than that. Okay. We have about 20 responses. So this should be representative now. So Shankar, the first question, how do you create new ideas? 38.5, which is the largest chunk, says trial and error experimentation. The second category says by building on old ideas. And third category is by studying patterns and papers. So these are the three top ones, of course, the largest being trial and error experimentation. So shall we go to the next question?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, what would you do to create a 10x improved solution? The top category is explore 10x more ideas. And the next category is redefine your problem. And there is one other, which is change your project management style.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So explore 10x more ideas. That's one top method. The third question you had asked was you've been working on a product idea for Indian market for quite some time, and then you come across a US patent describing a similar idea. What will you do? So the responses here, the largest chunk says start modifying your idea. And sorry about that, 50% actually. The second says discuss the application implication with a patent expert.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
there are others as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is broadly, if you want to comment on this, you can.
Yes, I'd love to comment on the third one to start with.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see the orange and red showing up here. That would be the best way to handle a situation like this. Because if you're working on an important problem, it's very much understandable that there are other innovators also working on it, and some of them might have filed a patent and got it granted ahead of you. So, but nothing to worry. Fine, no problem. It happens all the time. So what you need to do is first talk to a patent expert, take their opinion as to how different your idea is from the idea that is described in the patent. You need to take the help of a patent professional to actually get a clear understanding of this. And then based on those inputs, you have to go ahead and start modifying your idea so that your idea is also patentable. So I'm happy to see a lot of you have chosen these two options, and that's a right way to really go about it. Premnath, you want to add something to this?
No, I think instead maybe I'll pose a
Yes.
couple more questions from
I
the
also
chat.
want to say that Venture Center has people who can
Yeah,
help you
yeah,
with this. The
yeah,
IP phase at Venture
yeah,
Center has a lot of patent professionals who can look at your idea and look at what is there in the patent and tell how different these two are. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes, that is true. And also there are quite a few activities which relate to analytics, giving opinions, advisory activities which relate to how exactly to define your invention in comparison to what might be already out there. So it takes a few
Absolutely.
iterations, but it's possible to always figure out a few elements which are innovative and novel and worthy of patenting. Yeah. Okay. Shankar, if you don't mind, I'll stop this share and I will go to
Sure.
a few questions for you.
Yes,
Okay.
we could do
So
that.
there's a question requesting you to give an example of rearrange, which I think you skipped,
Sure.
but if you can
Sure.
talk a little bit about it, that will be helpful.
Rearrange, there are a lot of good examples. For a Tata Nano is one example where you can look at how they have rearranged the engine, which is typically the front of a car, it goes to the back of the car. And wiper, instead of having two wipers, they had one wiper. So rearrangement is where you don't really bring anything additional, but whatever is available, you try to move them around into a newer configuration, and thereby you are able to derive some benefits. Many times, rearrange is easier because if you want to combine something new, there could be a lot of constraints in doing that. But if you're going to rearrange what is there, you will have a lot more freedom to do that. Okay. So that way, for an innovator, rearrange is one step easier when it comes to implementation as compared to even combine.
Shankar, this is a question probably for the end, but at this point also it
Hmm.
might be worth talking through. Um, in the organizations you've been involved with, how did you go about implementing some of these ideas, and how did you create that culture of, where you deploy some of these tools and make it a little more systematic in terms of creating inventions? And this came
Sure,
on YouTube, this question. Yeah.
sure, sure. When it comes to actually building a culture of innovation and
Yeah.
making it easy for people to pursue their innovative ideas, what I found is most effective is instantly what the Venture Center is also trying to help innovators with, which is actually helping with the proof of concept. Because I have an idea and I just believe in the idea, I like the idea. I am also not very sure how the idea is going to work. The first thing for me to do is to do a very quick proof of concept experiment to prove the technical feasibility of the idea. Then I'll be convinced. Then, as an innovator, I'll be able to convince others and actually run this idea as a full fledged project. But the proof of concept is the biggest challenge because it's an idea on paper. Nobody has enough data to see whether it will work or not. So there are very few people who will support you in the organization to let you work on that early stage idea and do a proof of concept. So if you want to really strengthen a culture of innovation in your organization, you should make it easy for people to do a proof of concept for their ideas. This involves multiple things. One is freeing up their time. So we have heard of 80-20 in companies like 3M and Google, where 20% of the time people are encouraged to pursue their own ideas over another regular project. That can be one thing. Second is a space. For example, at the Mahindra Research Valley, I have created a space where people with ideas can come over and build prototypes and test. It's a nice, fun place to hang around. And you'll also meet other people with such innovative ideas who are very passionate. So, having a physical space is very important to do this. The third is some kind of a seed money because anything needs some resources to go ahead and do it. So, some kind of a seed money to do this. These three are very critical. And the fourth one is mentoring and guidance to actually convert this proven idea into something which is scalable and practically useful to the organization, which is where the mentors come in and they'll be able to guide you and shape your idea in the right direction so that it becomes something useful to the organization. So we talked about primarily freeing up time, creating space, seed fund, and finally a mentor to shape the idea in the right direction. These four things we have tried and found them to be very effective when it comes to helping the innovators prove their ideas and thereby build a culture of innovation in our organizations.
Yes, Shankar, actually, that last point you made about mentors, somebody has asked a question about that as well. How important is the role of a mentor and mentorship in this entire innovation process? Second part is what you might want to address. How should we select the right one for us as an inventor, probably
Sure.
looking for mentors?
Perfect. So I'll just give my approach, how I look for mentors. You could try this. If it doesn't work, you can try something else. So when we started with what is creativity all about, we looked at the three elements. We said one is basically your technical domain knowledge. Second is basically your motivation. The third is your creative thinking skills. Okay. So if I am going to look for a mentor, first of all, I would look for where I need help. Whether I need help in picking up more domain knowledge, I need help in building my motivation to work on a set of problems, or do I need help in picking up learning certain creative thinking skills? And based on that, I look out for who is good at it and approach them and request them to spend some time with me and mentor me. So that could be a good way. First of all, you need to figure out which of these three areas you are lacking, and then find out who is good at it, and then connect with them. It's always important to go with a very specific thing to a mentor and say that this is where I need help, and go to a mentor who can actually help you with that. Then it will work very beautifully.
So, Shankar, the last question before we break. Okay, there are situations where somebody has come up with a solution, and in the very beginning, they feel that the cost is very high or the complexity of the implementation is very high, right?
Yes,
What would you advise them how to go about it?
correct.
Sometimes, I mean, sometimes you do, there should that be a focus in the very
Yes,
beginning, or should it
yes.
not be a focus in the very beginning? And
Okay.
your advice
This
there.
is precisely what we are going to talk about right after the break, which is the part on convergent thinking. Okay. So you have to wait for a few more minutes to understand what is the right approach towards this. But I'm going to tell you three keywords before we break. One is customer desirability. Second is the technical feasibility. The third is economic viability. So the approach that I'm going to describe to you in terms of what is the sequence, how should you go about deciding to take your idea forward or drop the idea just because it doesn't meet the cost. All this is centered around these three words. And as soon as we get back from the break, we are going to talk about convergent thinking, where we will use these three parameters: customer desirability, technical feasibility, and economic viability. We'll use them in the right sequence, in the right way, to make sure we are not missing out on any of the early stage ideas. So please come back after the break and we'll talk about it in great detail.
Okay, great. So at this time, we will take a quick 5 minute break. So we'll be back at 11:35. It's 11:30 right now. Okay. So just I request people to stay online. And also, you can pick up a tea or coffee near you if possible, take a toilet break and come back. Okay. So we'll
Fine.
stop here for a few minutes and start again at exactly 11:35. Okay. Thank you, Shankar. I'm just
Thanks.
going to put up a temporary slide till then,
Sure.
so
Sure.
that, yeah. Shankar, can you get started again?
Oh, yes, I'm ready.
Yeah. Um, is it your slides now?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Do you see any other questions that we should take up now, or we can do it later?
I think we should do it later. Let's
Okay,
continue,
fine.
please.
I'll
Yeah.
be back.
Yeah.
Sure. So, friends, just before the break, we looked at six triggers for divergent thinking. So, what this allows us is it allows us to think along six distinct directions to improve our idea. And we should not forget where we started from. We wanted to look at three ways of improving our idea or product, which is to improve the useful function, to reduce the harmful function, and reduce the cost. So here you see this matrix. I kept those three verticals and I have introduced six horizontals corresponding to combine, rearrange, enhance, adapt, turn around, and eliminate. So, and I had suggested that you should budget 1 hour and you should spend 10 minutes for each of this trigger. So the way you do it is you look at combine, which is the first row, and then you look at what can I combine to improve the useful function of my product. What can I combine to reduce the harmful functions? And what can I combine to reduce the cost? Once you get a bunch of ideas, don't stop till you complete that 10 minutes, because only towards the last 1 or 2 minutes you will get some really very good ideas. So stick to the 10 minutes budget. Once you do that, the next 10 minutes you are going to look at rearrange and say, what can I rearrange in my product so that it becomes more useful, less harmful, and less cost. So capture your ideas in this kind of a matrix form so that you will know which idea is going to help where, whether it's going to improve the useful properties, reduce harmful properties, or reduce the cost. So it's very important to have pursue these three directions in which the product can actually become better. That should be the primary focus. And these are only six triggers to look at it in different ways. Fine. So once you do this, now you will have nothing less than 100 ideas for you. When you started with 1 or 2 ideas, at the end of this exercise, believe me, you'll have a minimum of 100 ideas. And out of this 100 ideas, at least 30 ideas will be so new that you would have never thought of it prior to this. That's the kind of usefulness that this simple tool Create has when you are in this stage of ideation. It's very, very important to not only just for you to learn and practice this, you should quickly disseminate this knowledge with the entire team so that all of you, the entire team, can sit together and collectively brainstorm using this approach. It becomes very important. So now you have lots of ideas. Of course, you cannot work on all the 100 ideas. So how are you going to select the top ideas out of these hundreds of ideas? That's what prioritization is all about. And that's what we'll look at now. And this also connects to the question that we wanted to answer in terms of, suppose you are working on a problem, you got some idea, but the idea works fine, but it's very expensive. If you build the product based on this, the product say it's going to cost 1,000 rupees, whereas the customers are ready to pay say only 100 rupees for this product. So 100 versus 1,000 is a huge gap. So should you work on this idea further and try to bring down the cost from 1,000 to 100? Or should you say, no, 100, where is 100, where is 1,000? I'm not going to waste my time trying to do this. let me drop this idea and look at some other idea which is closer to the target price. So how do you make this decision? Because it's very important, because even if the idea works well, if it is not at the right price point, you won't be able to sell. So how do you make this decision? How do you select the right ideas? This is where what we call as human-centered design. IDEO came up with this HCD framework. I picked up three filters that they use to screen ideas, and I added a fourth filter. And this I have been using for the last few years as a very effective screening tool to identify the best ideas. Okay, so you see four filters here: desirable, feasible, viable, and sustainable. So, will this product be desirable to the customer? Look at the word desirable. It's a very strong word. I'm not asking whether the customer will like it. I'm asking, will the customer desire it? So, there's a strong pull from the customer for this product. So, is that possible with this idea? Second is it technically feasible? Will I be able to actually build this and make it work? The third is it environmentally sustainable? Can I do this again and again for many, many years? Is it possible to do that without any other negative impact on the environment? And is it economically viable? In the sense, will it be profitable? If I make this and sell this, will I be able to make money? So these are the four filters. And when we look at ideas, we try to give them a low, medium, high rating against each of these four parameters: customer desirability, technical feasibility, economic viability, and sustainability. Are all these four equally important, or is one more important than the other? Is there a sequence that I should use to filter out ideas? This is where the question that we heard from one of the participants before the break becomes relevant. So I will tell you what I would do, and may or may not be right, may or may not work for you, but this is work for me. I have always started with customer desirability. I will ask whether this product will be desirable to the customer. If it is a yes to that question, and even if it is not technically feasible or economically viable at that stage, I will still continue to work with that idea, and over time, I will make it feasible and viable. But the first thing I will ask is, will it be desirable to the customer? Do I know enough about my customer for me to say a yes or a no? This is very important, friends. You should know for sure that your customer will actually desire this product. And you can proceed only if it's a clear, unambiguous, strong yes to this question, not otherwise. But if it's a no to the other two questions, technical feasibility and economic viability, it's okay. We can still continue to work. And eventually, with sufficient focused efforts, you'll be able to make it feasible and viable also. So I won't drop the idea at this stage just because it is expensive or because the technology is ready, not ready. I'll still go ahead and make it work. That is the first filter, desirability. The second filter I would use is technical feasibility. Means I know the customer would like it for sure. Next, I will ask, can I make it work with the available technology? If some new technology has to be developed, can it be done in a reasonable time frame? Okay, this is very important for us to get a clear answer to. And at this stage, even if it is not economically viable, I will still go ahead and work, because I know for sure that the customer likes it, and I know for sure I can make it work technically. Then I also know that it's only a matter of time. I'll definitely be able to build a profitable model around it. So I won't drop my idea at this stage. I'll just continue to work on it. The third stage is what I will ask: sustainable. Is it something sustainable? Does it have a positive impact on the environment? Is it something that I can go on and on and on and keep making these products forever and do this without worrying about the environment impact? And if it's a yes for this also, then I would take up economic viability as a final thing. and look at it. And because I have seen many examples in the past where to start with something was not profitable, but through a series of innovations, eventually it was made profitable. So economic viability is important, but I want to use that to drop an idea at an early stage. I'll still give enough time for the innovator to work on the idea and make it eventually economically viable. So my sequence would be customer desirability first, technical feasibility second, sustainability third, and economic viability the fourth. This is the sequence I would adapt, but it depends a lot on the product space that you are in and the kind of markets that you are in. But for me, this sequence has actually worked pretty well. So this is the second canvas that I want to share with you. The first canvas was an opportunity canvas where we described the innovation opportunity. The second one is actually an idea canvas. Here we are looking at what is the ideal solution, what are the useful functions that we want to improve, the harmful functions that we want to reduce, and what are the cost factors we are reducing. Then we also show the matrix of ideas using the create trigger, how we are able to get set of ideas for addressing all the three important directions of innovation, improving useful aspects, reducing harmful aspects, and reducing the cost. Then I take each idea and give a low, medium, or a high score against D, which is desirability, F, which is feasibility, V, which is viability, and S, sustainability. So a low, medium, high rating against each of these four parameters. Based on this, I pick up the top few ideas. So if you want to pick the top 10 out of 100 ideas, this is a very easy way to go about it. But the other 90 ideas that you dropped, don't throw them off. Keep them and periodically keep looking at them because of some new technology, the feasibility score may go up. Because of some new business model, the viability score may go up. So it's all possible. So keep track of those other 90 ideas also. But this top 10 is top 10 as of now. And keep looking at the other 90 periodically so that you can bring some more from that into your main stream. This is the idea canvas. This is again a single chart, which makes it easy for you to capture the top ideas and focus all your efforts on the most potential ones. So we have only two canvases. One is the opportunity canvas and the second is the idea canvas. Typically a A3 kind of a sheet should be sufficient for you to capture all this information, but it's very good to have it all on just these two charts. Brings a lot of simplicity and clarity to the project that you're working on. So now, if you look at what we have been doing so far, we started with what is creativity and innovation all about. Then we went through the discovery phase, asking three types of discovery questions, which could bring more clarity to the problem that we are working on. Then we captured all this in one sheet, the opportunity canvas. Then we moved to the solution mode. We started with visualizing the best possible solution out there, for which we used the ideality concept, which is borrowed from TRIS. What are the useful functions? What are the harmful functions? And what are the cost factors? So with this, we are trying to break free from all the constraints and visualize what is the best possible solution out there. Then we use the create, trigger, combine, rearrange, enhance, adapt, turn around, and eliminate to get into a divergent thinking mode and get as many ideas as possible. And then most recently, we looked at how to prioritize the top ideas using the human-centered design framework, the three filters of desirability, feasibility, and viability. And we added the fourth lens, which is sustainability. So we have tried to rate our ideas based on these four important parameters. And based on this, we have prioritized the ideas. Prioritization is very important, friends, because honestly, we don't have the time, the resources to work on all ideas. So it's very important that you are able to prioritize the right ideas. And it's true not only for small startups or individual innovators, it's true for large organizations also. In fact, it becomes even more important for large organizations to be good at prioritizing the right ideas. So here I'm going to shift gears and now move from generating incremental ideas to generating exponentially big ideas. Like instead of 2x and 3x improvements, I'm going to talk about 10x and possibly a 100x improvement. If you want those kind of real big ideas, how you should go about it? Is it first of all possible for us to come up with this kind of big ideas, 10x and 100x? And is there a systematic way to go about in order to generate those ideas? This is going to be the final piece of the discussion planned for today. Sure. So we are all so used to incremental thinking. We have been living in this world of incremental improvement for many, many decades. Whatever we have learned back at school, college, they're all incremental improvement in technology over hundreds of years. So it's very difficult for us to suddenly switch from incremental thinking to exponential thinking. But this is the need of the hour, because a lot of the technologies that as innovators and entrepreneurs, the technologies that we are going to use are all cross the incremental growth phase. They all enter the exponential growth phase. So the technology is growing very fast. And if you are not thinking exponentially, if you are still thinking incrementally, then we are not really making the best use of the technologies. So it's very important for us to consciously shift from incremental thinking to exponential thinking. And that's why I've kept this for the final part of the discussion so that this part stays with you fresh when we close this workshop today. So let me just narrate a story to you to introduce the exponential thinking. Okay, this goes back to the days of when the game of chess was invented, and the inventor came to the court of the king and then said, "I have this new game," and the king had a demo of this, and king was truly impressed by this uh, inventor. And then he said, you can have any reward that you want for inventing such a intelligent and such an interesting game. So what would you like to have? The king was ready to give him gold, silver, and whatnot. But the inventor said, just give me a few grains and that would be sufficient. And but give it to me in a particular way. You just give me one grain for the first square of the chessboard, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, and so on. So the king did a quick math and said, okay, maybe it may add up to, at best, maybe 100 bags of rice or wheat. It's not too much. You will have your reward. And the story goes that when they actually did the calculation, they ended up with this unimaginably big number, so many million metric tons, which is 1,645 times the global production of wheat in 2014. And if it's rice, it's about 2,000 times the global production of rice. Friends, just look at the picture. It just starts with one grain. But by the time you reach the 64th square, that's a mind-boggling big number that you end up with. And it is because this growth is exponential growth. And why this story is important for our discussion today, just one more example of exponential for you to appreciate how different it is. Suppose you take 30 linear steps and each step is 1 meter. You'd have just traveled 30 meters. But if you take 30 exponential steps, first step is 1 meter, second step is 2 meters, 4 meters, and so on. With 30 exponential steps, can you guess? You would have gone around the world 25 times. Not just once or twice. 25 times you would have gone around the world with just 30 exponential steps. So let us accept the fact that exponential is something that we don't fully understand because we are not very familiar with it. We have been living in this linear world for so long that exponential is something it will take time for us to understand and appreciate. But as innovators, why we should do this now? primarily because we are going to pursue not incremental innovation, but exponential innovation, which is 10x value and 100x values. How do we create such value for the customer? And to do this, to explain this to you, I'm going to use the work of Peter Diamandis. He has a very elegant framework called the 60 framework, which I'm going to use to describe to you how you can get into this mode of exponential thinking and really create 10x value for your customer. Just the very first step for you to take if you want to get into this exponential innovation journey, the very first step is digitization. You need to ask, what has still not been digitized in the space that I am in? And by digitizing, how can I create value for the customer? Looks very simple and straightforward. So you may wonder why, how just by digitizing, how can I get into exponential mode? Friends, when you decide to digitize your product, your service, actually you are getting on to what we call as the Moore's curve. Gordon Moore proposed that the computing power is going to double every 18 months. And it has been doubling. The data that you see, 1970 to 2000, you see that the computing power has doubled every 18 months, and the cost of computing has become half every 18 months. So as a result, we are able to make the digital technology so powerful and so affordable, so compact. So what was the power of a supercomputing center in 1970 is the power of, that you carry in your smartphone today. So huge, big change in terms of the computing power being made available to you at a very low cost, also in a very accessible manner. So whenever we talk about digitization, we are talking about a technology which has been growing on this exponential mode for so many years. So the moment you get onto this curve, your product's performance and the value that it creates to the customer will also start growing exponentially because you are riding on an exponential curve. It's as simple as that. And it's not just computing power. We are bringing a few disruptive technologies. All of these are growing exponentially. It's a mobile internet, artificial intelligence, use of the cloud, robotics, energy storage like the lithium-ion batteries, advanced materials like graphene, advanced manufacturing like 3D printing, renewable energy sources like solar, and the electric and the autonomous vehicles. All these technologies, friends, are on the exponential mode. They have all crossed the first half of the chessboard. They are in the second half and they are growing at a mind boggling speed. That is real exponential growth. And if you are using any of these technologies in your product, you should quickly switch over from incremental thinking to exponential thinking because the technology is growing so fast. There is no reason for you to think of 2x and 3x improvements. You should be thinking of 10x and 100x improvement because what is x today? Tomorrow it's going to be 10x. So the rate at which it's growing is so fast. That's the reason why we need to consciously shift from incremental thinking to exponential thinking so that we make the right use of these disruptive technologies to create value for our customers. When you try to do it, suppose you said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and digitize. Is it straightforward? Will you start making exponential money from tomorrow? That's where you'll see that there is a catch. If you look at the stories of people who have tried to do this, it has not been easy. One of the early innovators to look at digitization as Steve Vernon, who worked for Kodak, he said digital camera is the future. So he went on to build a digital camera. And you can see the prototype that he's holding. It weighed about 3.5 kgs and it's about 0.201 megapixels. It's a resolution. And this was way back in 1975. Okay. Steve Sassoon thought of it so early on. And then he went about talking to people around and trying to tell them that this is the future of photography. And as you would believe it, nobody really believed him. How can this ugly looking, bulky camera with such low resolution, how can it ever replace the camera that we use today? And moreover, it is not only the lack of faith in the new technology. Also, look at the way Kodak was making money. They were making money by selling the chemicals for printing, the printing paper, the films, and so on. So, when you move digital, no chemicals, no paper, no films, nothing. So, Kodak was wondering, well, how would I make my money then if this is the new technology? So, there are reluctance and barriers coming both from a technology perspective and also a business model perspective. But we all seen that 2012 Kodak had to file for bankruptcy because they missed this entire wave, the opportunity. Although it happened right within their company, they missed the chance to invest on this particular technology and take it forward. This happens whenever you digitize something. The initial performance is pretty low. It's deceptively low. But those of you who have heard about this exponential growth knows that it's low today, but tomorrow, day after tomorrow, it's going to overshoot the current technology. You know that. But a lot of people didn't know about it, and it was taking a lot more time because it was in the initial first part of the chessboard. So the growth was very slow. So it was taking a long time. But today it doesn't take that long a time. Within weeks and within months, it's going to double up and triple up in performance. But this was way back. So he had to go through this phase of deception. And this particular company missed the opportunity to leverage this technology. But what happens if you survive the phase of deception? And if not only you, the people around you also are patient enough, then the disruption will actually happen. And how will you know that the disruption has happened? Two things will happen. One is dematerialization. The second is demonetization. What is dematerialization? If you had planned a vacation with your family about 10 years back, you would have planned to carry a lot of these things. You would have carried a music system, you would have carried a camera, you would have carried a Sony Handycam, you would have carried so many things you would have carried. But today you don't do that. All you do is remember to take your smartphone with you that has brought everything together into a small compact device. So dematerialization is basically where the physical objects vanish. They get replaced by something very small and compact. So digitization, then deception, then disruption, and the very next thing is dematerialization. And I have shown evidences of this in my own industry, the automotive industry, where when we shift from engines to electric, so many components overnight they just vanished. So this is a very clear indication that the disruption has already happened, and now we are moving forward on that, and then it's all going to be exponential change from there onwards. Of course, since the dematerialization, the physical object is no longer there. The material cost, the manufacturing cost, everything goes away. And suddenly, a product which was super expensive suddenly becomes so affordable. That is what is demonetization all about. And you may wonder why all this happens. The reason for all this is what we call as democratization of technology, where technology is made available to everybody, made affordable and accessible to every single person out there. So you start with the digitization, then you survive through deception, you see the disruption happen, then the dematerialization, the demonetization, and finally the democratization of technology for everybody out there. This is very powerful, and nature has designed innovations in such a way that every new technology eventually gets democratized and everybody gets access to it. So all you have to do is follow this path. Make the first step of digitizing your product or service and accept the fact that there will be an initial phase of deception. So be kind to your innovators, be patient enough to let them cross that phase. Then there is no looking back. disruption, dematerialization, demonetization, and democratization. When this happens, democratization, you may wonder, how is it exponential growth of the business? Because the price is coming down and it's becoming affordable to all. But you should also remember that when the product price comes down, a lot more people will be able to use your product. So your customer base is going to grow exponentially when the price of the product comes down, the cost of the product comes down. So it's very important for you to understand this, because we have seen this happen. There will be an exponential growth in the business when the price of the product comes down. So once you believe in that, you'll be able to make this curve work for you. So friends, if you look at what we have talked about so far, we started with what is creativity and innovation all about. We talked about the three elements, talked about importance of domain knowledge, creative thinking skills, and motivation, the Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and the Kriya Shakti. Then we went through an elaborate discovery phase where we understood the power of questions, and we trained ourselves to ask a variety of questions that will bring a lot of clarity to the problem that we are working on. And then we crisply captured all this into a single sheet called the opportunity canvas. Then we shifted gears and came to solving the problem, where we started with visualizing what is the best solution out there. This is a constraint-free thinking, and we call it as ideality, or the ideal final result, which is a TRIS tool. And here we looked at three things. What are the useful features of my product? What are the harmful features? And where is the cost? Then we pursued innovation from three directions: how I can improve the useful features, how I can reduce or eliminate the harmful features, and how I can reduce the cost. Then we get into the ideation mode. We started with the divergent thinking using the create tool, which is combine, rearrange, enhance, adapt, turn around, and eliminate. Then we had a lot of ideas. We wondered how to select the top ideas. That's where we brought in the human-centered design approach of using customer desirability, technical feasibility, and economic viability. And then we added the important layer of sustainability. With these four filters, we'll be able to very easily select the top ideas. And finally, we also looked at how we can move from incremental innovation to exponential innovation. Instead of 2x and 3x ideas, how we can get 10x and 100x ideas. That's where we talked about the 6D framework of Peter Diamandis, which starts with digitization and ends with democratization of technology. So at this stage, I think we have time. This is going to be the last survey that we'll be asking you. You heard a variety of tools over the last 2 hours. We want to hear your feedback. Which innovation tool will you use when you go back to your project after this workshop? And will you be using it within the next 1 week? Because if you don't use it in the next 1 week, I can tell you, you may never use it. Okay. So with this, we want to hear from you. Which of the innovation tools will you use in the next 1 week? So let me stop sharing and hand it over to Dr. Premnath.
Yes, Shankar, this is put up the form. It's on the chat box. It's also there on YouTube chat box. So please feel free to use that link. I will track the responses as it comes up. Shankar, you have covered a lot of ground actually. Very deceptive 2 hours.
Maybe it was fast paced. We may have to do it slowly sometime. But
okay. Okay, so I'm sharing now. Okay, yes. This was done slightly differently instead of yeah. So
yes, 5W1H, 5Ys, IFR, create is really gone long way. Okay, and then the lens for prioritization, desirability, feasibility, viability, and sustainability.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see some more responses. And
yes. So friends, you may observe that all the tools that I introduced to you are very simple, straightforward ones. It's not very difficult to remember and use it. But the key is using it. Okay. Don't wait for an opportunity to use it. Just go ahead and use it, whether you are at home or work, wherever you are. Just familiarize yourself with using it, and also tell your friends and family members about these tools, because these are actually, this is fun tools, and you can really practice as a group and derive a lot of benefits from it. So don't wait for some big serious problem to take up and then apply these tools. Just go ahead and keep practicing it whenever you get a chance.
Yeah, I think so. We are about 30 responses, so I hope this is
Yes, this is
representative.
good.
So
Yes,
clearly, I think create is what seems to
yes,
be most popular
yes,
in many ways.
yes, yes.
And of course, followed by five
Five
whys
eyes, yes,
and the
5W,
others.
1H, and IFR, more or less. And the other three are more or less the same level, which is really good. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shankar,
Yeah.
is there a site or something where you are putting up some of your content? And
Hmm.
I think you had something on LinkedIn as well, isn't it?
Correct.
The
LinkedIn, all my presentations I keep posting there. Some of them are PPTs and some of them are videos. I will definitely make more such content available for all the participants here.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of times when I have written some papers around these topics. I will share those also.
Yes, that will be very useful. We will send
Yes.
it out to everybody as well. I have a few questions, if you don't mind. Can we
Sure.
take a few more
Sure.
questions? In the
Yes.
meantime, Pragna, would you please put out Shankar's LinkedIn URL? Okay.
Yes, I'm also putting down today's YouTube link so that people can access it later. I'll put
Yes.
both.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so Shankar, a couple of questions which I was just noting down as they came in. First thing is, by the way, I'll request also the feedback form to be posted for this event as well. So Pragnya and Vidula can please do the needful. Okay. In the meantime, the question is about the customer desirability, right? So the question is, how do you come to discover what is desirable to the customer? What if the customer is not aware of the solution or its possibilities, as it happens very often? Like, you hear about Apple stories and Steve Jobs anticipating needs which people may not see it, or the famous quote, which actually is not Henry Ford's quote, but about the about the if you ask people if they wanted what they would
Faster car.
desire,
Yeah.
yeah, they would ask
Yes.
for a faster horse carriage rather than a car, right? So how do you deal with such things?
Sure.
By the way, just before you start, interesting comment here. Great session. Thank you for this creative session. Okay, good. So please
Thanks.
continue. Yeah,
Sure.
answer the.
Yeah. So we also used to struggle a lot with this part of the whole innovation. And the last few years, we are about 3,000 engineers at Mahindra Research Valley. So we have been training ourselves in this design thinking, actually, and it's been helping us a lot because we work on automotive and farm products. Especially when it comes to farm products, we hardly get to interact with the farmers in our day-to-day life. So how do we understand what the customers want and what would really address their problems? So we started doing it as a practice to go to villages, spend a whole day with the farmers, to observe a lot of things, what they do in their daily life, for us to understand what are the pain points, what are the real constraints they face. And that's how our journey with the design thinking started. And two things happen. One is when you spend time with them, you start empathizing with them. Empathizing is very different from sympathizing. When we are sitting in the office and thinking about farmers, we are only sympathizing. We just say, okay, they have problems, we need to solve it. But when you go and spend a whole day, we do this in Tiruvannamalai and Tiruchi, places very close to the Mahindra Research Valley, which is 4 or 5 hours of travel. We do that. And when we spend a whole day with the farmers, what we realize is we are able to put ourselves in their position. See what it is like to live that kind of a life, what it is like to face that problem day in and day out. So that shifts from sympathy to empathy. We are able to really imagine, and that makes us think even better and come up with solutions which are more meaningful for the kind of environment that they are living in. For example, in the city, we take electricity power supply for granted. In the villages, that may not be so. So we need to think of solutions which would work robust enough, which would work in spite of power cuts and all those things. So and when you, many times when you ask the customer, what is your problem and what would solve your problem, they may say something, but that may not be right many times, either because they have a limited knowledge, or they think that you are not capable of going beyond what is available today and offering them something beyond that. So they will try to use currently available solutions and words and say, this is the problem, this is the solution we need. So that's a very, very limited insight that you would get. So answer to is the practice design thinking. All of us as engineers, innovators, entrepreneurs, we should spend time with our customers. We should live their life. We should eat what they eat, wear what they wear, be there actually for a few days. Observe, make a lot of notes, take photographs, make videos, and then come back to your lab, sit down, and try to translate that into insights and then problems to be solved. It's very important to start with a very open mind, be there with them, and try to understand. This is the first part. Second, when especially in our automotive business, when we try to build new products for our customers, we realize that when we translate all these insights into what are the needs of the customer, we see three distinct set of needs. First is what we call as rational needs, which is where the customer is able to say why they want this. I want better fuel economy. I want improved safety. All these are very rational, logical needs. The second is what we call as emotional needs. There is no clear logic or rational to it, but there's a strong emotional connect. If you give this, they will bond with your product like crazy. They'll just love you for making that product. That emotional connect is very strong. It is one level higher than the rational needs also. But they are shy to talk about it because there is no rational behind it, but there's a very strong emotional connect. So they won't readily talk about it, but you have to be there with them for a long time for them to open up and talk about their emotional needs. The third, which is the toughest, is what we call as the meaningful needs. These are the deep sense of purpose and meaning that's within the customers. And it's very difficult for us to understand what those needs are, let alone build a product which will address those needs. But for example, if you care for the education of the girl child, for example, then you would buy product for a company which actually spends a lot of their CSR money to promoting the education of the girl child. Those kind of things which are not directly connected with the product, but which connect with the deep sense of purpose that you have and you share it with the company that makes a product. All those kind of things are also very important. So that's how we understood that after all this insight thing, you should be able to bucket them as rational, emotional, and meaningful needs. And then you should be able to come up with features in the product which addresses all these needs of the customer. And that's what would make these products really successful. But it all starts with your readiness to go stay with the customers, observe a lot of things with a very open mind, and then make a list, translate that into insights, problems to be solved, come up with ideas, and put those ideas as features in the product. So it's a very long process, but that's what would help us in the long run.
Yeah. Very nice answer. I mean, I like the rational, emotional,
Yeah.
meaningful needs part
Yes.
quite well. I'll, if you don't mind, we'll just take a few more questions.
Sure.
I'm
Sure.
mindful of time, but these are
Yeah.
some good questions as well. So one of the questions is about how do you decide when to stop working on an idea or to kill an idea? And do you have some pointers and tips and ideas on that? Yeah.
It's a see, for many of us, our idea is like a baby, so it's so difficult to let go of an idea, but
Yeah.
it's also important, in the interest of sustaining your business, that you decide when to stop working on one idea and switch over to the next one. So it's that's where the logical brain plays a big role in analyzing it and deciding whether it's worth pursuing or stopping. Whereas your emotional brain will still say it's your idea. There is still some hope. There is still some potential in it. You should worth looking it for some more time. So it's a balance, that approach that you have to take. And personally, I may stop working on an idea where I don't see potential, but honestly, I don't stop it fully. I keep some minimum thread line, like a 10% effort or a 5% effort still going on. I keep revisiting the idea whenever something new technology, something new happens, and keep seeing it's there somewhere in the back of the mind. I don't literally throw it out of the system, but I do divert the funds, all the other resources from this poorly performing idea to the other idea which has more promise. But that's only about 90-95%. I just keep still a 5% lifeline running for this idea, because I have seen actually many of those ideas do come back into the funnel. Also, maybe that your bandwidth, your limitation of resources is what is making you think that this idea is not promising. That's where the open innovation comes in. If you are able to take the idea out of your funnel and partner with other people who have the skills and resources to actually develop this idea further, develop it outside, and then bring it back to your funnel, so that you'll be able to take that idea from a more advanced stage into your product, then you'll be able to take a lot more ideas from one end of the funnel to the other end. So don't try to do everything within the walls of your own company. This is where, if this is not a top priority idea, if it's not very promising to you, maybe don't throw it out. Look at the possibility of collaboration and open innovation around that, so that some part of it is done outside and then you bring it back. That is also one way to not let go of it entirely. Okay, this is how I have been managing the idea portfolio.
Sorry, Shankar, that's very true.
Yeah,
This whole idea of technology options also, where you invest a little bit to keep the door open long enough and keep
true.
going, and but not exhaust all your resources on it, right?
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
similar kind of an idea over there as well. A question on DVFS Canvas: is a score a good idea, a score or a
Yes.
ranking?
So low,
And if
medium, high
so,
is basically a 1, 3, 5 numbers we put. Then add up these numbers and then pick the top 10, basically.
yeah,
Yes.
but is an averaging, arithmetic averaging, a good idea? Or because what if one of them is zero?
So it's not adding, it's multiplication. D
Okay.
into F into V into S. If one of them is zero, it will going to pull down everything. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good. I think that's the also another question is relating to everyday disruptions in technology, right? So there are new ideas coming up, they're disrupting you continuously. And when you're working on different ideas, different technologies are coming up which are disrupting your work, right? Continuously. So what is a good strategy to deal with such disruptions, right? And sometimes it can sort of stall your work in many ways, right? Because you might think that, oh, somebody has scooped me, kind of a thing, right? But is that how you would think about it, or you have a different way of thinking about it?
This is disruption like the patent example that we talked about. Is it that kind of a
Yeah, for
disruption or?
example, somebody
Hmm,
mentioned about say
hmm,
EVs, and you're
hmm.
talking about batteries,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
new chemistries keep coming up. You work
Correct.
on something else new comes up, and you
Sure.
get disrupted over there, right?
Yes.
So that is the norm in technology, right? In cutting edge technology. In fact, it's that risk that people thrive on in that kind of an industry, right? In terms of
Correct.
startup world, it's all about riding the wave on disruptions, right?
Correct. Sure.
And being healthily sort of managing those risks rather than running away from it. But
Sure.
I think your views will be useful here. Yeah.
Sure. So, when there are multiple such technologies around the horizon, it becomes very important for you to correctly evaluate them and say which of them is a real threat, which has the real disruptive power to displace what you are doing. You have to do this very carefully, because it's very misleading to see whether it will be the lithium-ion battery pack or a sodium-ion battery or something totally different, the hydrogen fuel cells. When there are multiple technologies out there, it becomes very difficult. So what we try to do is actually identify certain parameters that we need to track over time. Maybe the cost of energy storage, so many dollars per kilowatt hour. Like that, we identify one or two key metrics that we need to keep track, and also decide on a threshold to say if it crosses this number, then this technology is real out there. We have to take serious note of this technology. But till it happens, you need not worry about it. So you can focus on whatever you're doing. But once it crosses, say, $100 per kilowatt hour, then this is something serious threat. This can actually disrupt you. That's when you have to start taking it seriously. But to do that, you should have initiated research in that direction at least 3 years or 5 years in advance. That's how we should always have a balanced portfolio. Maybe 60 to 70% of our efforts can be on the current technology, a mature technology that we are working on. But it's very important to have at least a 20% effort on something which is a high risk, something which is futuristic. We have to do that. We cannot be zero. It has to be 20% because with the exponential rate at which technology is growing, the 20% will become 80% and 100% within no time. So you just cannot afford to miss that opportunity. That's how a lot of companies got disrupted and displaced. So you should have this balanced mix of 80-20 at least to make sure that you are not missing the opportunity to pursue a new technology. That's very important. The second
Yeah.
thing is, you have heard from the exponential growth that today the technology may be expensive. So you may not be able to make a profit by introducing that in your product. But you know for sure that tomorrow the price is going to drop. So, but since you started it yesterday, you already have the customers coming to you. You're already connected with them. And you know for sure that the price is going to come down. It's only a matter of time, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So you will have the first mover advantage if you believe in the exponential growth of the technology. That's what will give you an edge over all your competitors.
Yeah. Shankar, a few quick questions, okay, and then we will close. One is about, many innovators feel that they are actually limited in their execution because of their limitations in terms of ability to arrange resources, right? So, what is the message to them? How should they handle that? Are there some pointers? Because that seems to be a very serious limiting factor for, or at least perceived limiting factor for many of them.
Sure, sure. See, if you are looking at the resources as what is really slowing you down as a real bottleneck, and places like venture centers, the incubators and the accelerators, that's precisely what they are for. All you need to do is bring your idea to a level of maturity sufficient enough to pitch to these organizations. Once they are convinced that your idea has a potential, they'll be able to support you in terms of making the infrastructure available, making available mentors to guide you, and also making available the next level of funding that you can actually aim for once you complete this and be successful with this. So all you need to do is work on your idea to a level of maturity where you can come and pitch to an organization like the venture center. That is sufficient. From then onwards, you will never be limited by resources or funding. Okay. So a few years back, such things were not in India, but today you have. And there are so many such organizations which are coming up in different regions now. So it becomes very easy for you to do that. And so three things. One is the infrastructure. Second is the seed fund. The third is the mentors. All three are equally important to you at the early stage of your idea. And all these three will be provided by an institution like the Venture Center. So it's very important
Yeah.
for you to just go over there on a weekend, talk to people there and see what they are doing and how they are doing. That's sufficient enough for you to give ideas to take forward your own idea. Sure.
Yeah, can I add to that, Shankar, a little bit
Yes.
that
Yes.
my observation is the biggest limitation people face in arranging resources is their ability to put together and tell a credible story. Okay, so if that is a serious problem, either you have to do it as an innovator. There's no two ways about it. Any person who is working on new ideas has to sell their new ideas to the whole world. Okay, tell the story, and there's no two ways or excuses that you can give. If you're unable to do it, you have to find team members, partners, mentors to help you do it. Otherwise, it is, you just cannot raise resources, right? So that, if you want to focus on anything as an innovator, it should be about your ability to tell stories. Okay, and I don't mean stories as yarns, I mean stories as meaningful, credible stories which people can believe. And when your idea is based on science, the level of credibility needs to be at a different level for a different audience. Okay, so that is something very important as well. So last few questions which are a little more broader, and I just want to request you to comment on that. One question is about, what can you tell us about how you go about tracking and foreseeing trends in technology?
Sure, sure. So one is to set a lot of search alerts in terms of tracking multiple technologies. And I also talked about specific parameters that you need to track. It's not just reading about everything that's happening out there, but translating that to what impact it's going to have on the parameter that you are tracking. The case of batteries, I was talking about cost of energy storage. Like that, you need to decide. But it's not too difficult to track individual technology. But what takes you by surprise, what many times we miss out, is a sudden convergence of technologies. When two, three such technologies evolve parallelly and suddenly come together, that time there will be a overnight change in the whole space. And that's what many of us miss out many times. So it's very important for you to look at technologies holistically, look at combination. See, I showed you on one of the charts, I showed you mobile internet, AI, advanced materials, advanced manufacturing, some 12 different technologies I showed you. Actually, you need to track not just all the 12 individually. You need to look at how they can converge. When they come together, what new possibility they can create. That's a tough part. And if you're able to do that, then you will have an ultimate advantage over everybody else. But that's reality. That's what is happening. Convergence is what is happening out there. And that's what is really driving some of the big changes out there. Electric vehicles or autonomous vehicles are not happening because of one technology suddenly growing. It's multiple technologies. If you look at the LiDAR, which is the eye of the autonomous vehicle, the last 13 years, the price of the LiDAR has fallen by 99%. 99% reduction in price in just last 13 years. And the LiDAR, which was so huge, is now small and compact. I can hold it in the palm of my hand. This is possible because of parallel developments in multiple technologies and their convergence. Same way, the lithium-ion battery, 90% fall in the price over the last 10 years. Okay, materials, manufacturing, chemistry, so many things are happening in parallel to make this possible. So you need to train yourself to look at multiple technologies and their convergence in a holistic way. That's how you will make sure that you don't miss out on any of these disruptive technologies happening out there. And it's all happening really fast. If you take a lot of time to learn and understand, it would have already happened by the time you realize. You have to be super quick about it now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been talking about this in the context of the mRNA vaccine, and how innovations happen in entangled environments. In the sense, multiple technologies sort of parallelly progressing, and you connect them, and connecting the dots. Identifying the dots and connecting the dots is actually very key to this process in trends. Okay, last question, Shankar, which is regarding to the education. First of all, there's a request to you to suggest books, websites, and reading, and
Sure.
whatever you can. If you can, please forward it to me. I would be happy to share it with all the people who signed up for this program and attended it as well.
You know what I'm going to do? All the books that I like, I'm going to just put them on my table, take a picture of it, and send it to you.
Sure, and also put it on your LinkedIn because you
Will
announced
do.
your LinkedIn
Yes,
profile as
yes,
well.
we'll do that.
The other
Yeah.
thing is about, I thought, so some people did mention that this is the kind of stuff that should be actually taught in the science and engineering syllabuses, right? Should it be made part of the syllabus, and is it happening? Because I know you have been promoting this in so many different ways,
Correct.
through
True.
CII, through various different organizations, associations, and so on and so forth. What is, that's a recommend, that's basically from the people who are teachers here, who
Sure.
want to know, how do you promote this? How do you get it into the syllabus? Or should it
Sure.
be part of syllabus, or should it be taught outside of it? All of those things. And what's the best way to
Fair.
teach it?
Fair.
And after
So
that, we'll
the
close. Okay.
Yeah. So we tried teaching these kind of systematic innovation methods at different levels. Started with the teaching students at IITs and IISc who are in the master's or PhD level. Then we came down to undergraduates. But the best group that we found was what we did last year. We call it as Kinder Spark. These were children anywhere from 5th standard to 10th standard. we got the best response from those children in terms of their ability to absorb all this, apply it, and come up with some really good ideas and present it boldly to a bunch of experts. So this we did during this lockdown time. So in an online mode, we ran this workshop for about 3 months with the children from across India participating. And it was on Sundays, 10 to 12, 2 hours every Sunday we used to do in this virtual mode. And in the first month itself, they identified specific problems to work on. So that over the next 3 months, they developed it and finally they presented it. And I think Dr. Premnath and Dr. Manisha were there for the final presentation of ideas when these kids presented. So we find that the younger the audience, the faster the learning and the application is actually. So that way it's good to start this teaching very early on, maybe when the kids are in 4th or 5th grade. I think because the basic science and the math part they would already learned, it's good to introduce at that stage. Second part is it's best done outside the school. So our experience has always been in terms of workshops on weekends and stuff like that. So the children are much more conducive to learning in this kind of an environment than in the traditional classroom. And also the teachers are so busy covering what is there in their syllabus, they hardly have time for all these things. So we always find this to be effective in outside school kind of an environment. And children seem to really enjoy it. They are so happy when they are in this mode. And they are not like this when they are attending the regular classes in the school. So I think the earlier we start, it will be really good for us as a country, because a lot of these kids will be able to realize their potential for creativity, and they will also be able to choose areas that they are genuinely interested in and specialize in that over the years, so that they'll all be not only super performers in their chosen field, they'll also be very happy people doing that. So I think the earlier we start, the good for us.
Okay, so do you want to tell us what FLOW stands for before we close?
Yes, FLOW is a acronym: focus, leap, orient, and what's next. So we followed that same process today also. Focus is on focusing on the innovation opportunity, focusing on the problem. Leap and orient happens together. Leap is letting go of the assumptions and the ideas. Orient is, as the new ideas come in, orienting them so that they are feasible, desirable, viable, sustainable, so on. Orientation is very important. The last W is what's next. Because we are so immersed in current technology, we miss out on what's happening next in terms of new technologies or new needs of the market. So keeping track of that and then defining the next problem, and then this is a cycle. Innovation goes on. So FLOW is focus, leap, orient, and what's next.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. I request everybody to fill up the form, please, a feedback form. That's always valuable for us. And thanks, Shankar. Also to all the participants, I'm sorry if some of the emails went into spam. We seem to be having that problem. We'll resolve it within the next event. But that said, the fact that we have it on YouTube means that they will receive the link, everybody who registered. There were actually a lot many registrations. I think this was a problem that we ran into. Anyway, thank you so much, Shankar. This was completely, every time I've heard it more than once in parts,
Yes.
but I really enjoy it. I have not seen, the ideation side of it is something which is not, there aren't too many people who can describe it, and I think by working with all the kids in Kinderspark and your own children, you have perfected it. So
Yes.
it is understandable to all of
That's
us.
true. Yes. That was a
So
very fulfilling, very nice experience, actually. It is good. Yes.
so thank you very much,
Nice.
Shankar.
Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks so
thanks a
much
lot.
for the opportunity. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye
Bye.
everybody. Yeah, see you. Thanks. Pragna, we can keep it on for just a few more minutes so that the form gets
Yeah.
filled up, and just put up the form
Yes.
again, please, and then we
Yes.
can close.